Hello, Jess. Thank you very much for joining me today. Now we're meeting online due to Corona and long distance. I'm in Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta, and you are in Ontario, Sudbury.
Sturgeon Falls.
Sturgeon Falls, yes. Basically, we are meeting today to basically discuss about, how we came together, how we got to know one another, and also on how we got to a level of getting to know one another on a personal level. If memory serves, I think we met in 2013. And from there, that was our first meeting. And from there, the rest was kind of part of history. And so I remember from then, we started dating after, and it became serious. Is that right? Or do you think I kind of skipped something else, some details?
That's right. I mean, unless you want more details.
Okay, so I think we did it from 2013 to 2015. So what was it like being my girlfriend?
What was it like?
Yeah.
Well, I think there was a, big variety of emotions within the time that we were together. I would say at first, I definitely fed off of your confidence a lot. So us being, together, I guess it was definitely very eye-opening. We come from two very different backgrounds. So in that sense, it opened my eyes culturally in a really big way, and in, different values that people have. Other than that, I would say initially in our relationship, I guess I fed off of your confidence a lot. So, you really take pride in how you present yourself and how you dress and that kind of thing, which I didn't have that confidence. So for me, it definitely got some getting used to, and it gave me a sense of belonging and, worthiness, I guess, to be with someone that's really confident. But with that confidence over time, it, I guess, portrayed as, kind of an emotional barrier at the same time. So it was a learning experience trying to, balance the confidence on one end, but not having, the tangible emotion on the other end. So I think towards the end of the relationship, we struggled in that sense, but definitely lots of emotions, lots of experiences within that time. So it wasn't all good and wasn't all bad.
So speaking of good or bad, so from, let's say from scale 1 to 10, how can you, so let's say from scale 1 to 10, how sad were you in our relationship, and why did you stay for as long as you did stay?
I don't think sad is really the right term. I think more towards the end, it was more of like a sense of feeling helpless, like with the situation. Like I was struggling, feeling, getting the emotional side of you, and getting the connection, the affection. So I was limited in what I could do, and there's some frustration that comes with that. So I wouldn't say sad, just more helpless, that I didn't know what else to do. So, and the second part of your question, why I stayed so long, I think everyone is hopeful. They want things to change, to evolve, people to grow together.
Right.
And just, the more you feel for someone, I guess you try and push it farther and farther, but at one point there's a breaking point where you just decide that things don't work out.
Okay, so before probably in the whole concept, what is the happiest memory you have about us through that period of time?
Happiest memory,
Yeah.
I would say I have this very vivid memory. I think it was the very first time that I met your siblings.
Yeah.
We went to your parents' house, and I guess you had offered me some fufu,
Yeah.
and it was the first time that I was learning how to eat it, like rolling it in my fingers. And your brothers were looking at me like with huge eyes, being like, my God, there's this white girl eating food in our living room. Like, what is going on? And they were giggling amongst each other's, and you were just like watching us interact. And I don't know, it's a really good memory that I have.
Okay, do you have a second one, if I may just extend it for a little bit?
Another what, sorry?
A second memory that you might have.
I would say, well,
if you have to look like, let's like in the whole concept through.
oh yes,
Yeah.
yes, I also remember you coming on a summer vacation, like a fishing trip with the family, and yeah, and you fishing and catching fish with the family, and having that experience was quite entertaining to watch, and then just sharing the moment with family just made it even better. So I remember there's a picture, I think you had framed in the house for quite a while.
Yeah, I remember that was very interesting. Yeah, the experience was really interesting. I remember that was my first fish ever that I caught, and I remember being conservative and I let it back in. So, but yeah, I remember the summer.
Yeah.
So once things, we got to a point whereby we understood like things weren't really going as we hoped. What did your parents think of us or me when we broke up, and how did it affect you, or how did you heal from it?
Well, I think my parents, like, out of instinct, they just want the best for their child.
Right.
And I think I was mostly communicating with my mom for that kind of stuff. So I was, for the longest time I didn't talk to her because I was too proud and wanted, her to think that everything was all good and rosy. And then when I couldn't sort things out in my own mind, that's when I started opening up to her for advice. And she was concerned that I wasn't feeling the love and affection that I was looking for. And she said, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And also had some good friends to support on, girls that I was in nursing with. They helped keep me company and help wipe away the tears and self back up. So yeah.
So since you had friends and family around to be able to help you wipe the tears, how would you describe like you are able to manage that moment, and you overcome it and life goes on right now as we speak?
I would just say that it was definitely more than a moment. For me, it was my first long-term relationship. So I think it definitely took, several months, if not, years, to try and just get some clarity in my values and what happened. And I mean, we still stayed in touch to some degree within that time, but I wouldn't say that it was a moment. It was definitely a period of time. So.
Okay, so speaking of keeping in touch, how would you describe our current relationship? Because we've been keeping up in touch. Not that we don't, I mean, we don't speak every day. We don't communicate every day. But,
No.
yeah. But how would you describe our current relationship?
I would say it's present, but definitely distant. You know, we still care for each other and, you know, find value in each other's friendship, but definitely not to near as the same degree as it was before.
Right.
You know, now we have our own separate lives, separate, you know, provinces. So I think, I mean, it's present but distant. You know, we talk
Right.
maybe every 6 months or so, and you know, for me, it's good. You know, I'm happy to hear from you once in a while, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but it's not too much where, you know, it affects our current relationships, you know.
Mm.
I think it's a good balance.
Right. Right. The balance I think between is has also like kind of determined on how we can able to relate to one another. Um, I think I'm done for my part, except I have one bonus question. So I don't know if I should wait and I ask it after, or I should just go ahead and present it to you. What do you think?
Go for it.
Okay. So probably I'm trying to see how can we could describe this the best way. Um, do you think knowing what you know now and looking back and having the picture of the whole scenario from the beginning to the end. Um, at one point, have you ever questioned or doubted that I loved you during that period of time?
In any period, like I
Yeah,
think as a summary,
the
I have
summaries as
no
a
doubt, like even yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't think we would even be in touch if you didn't, right? So I don't think our relationship would have lasted as long as it did if you didn't.
okay.
If it did, then I would have been really naive and, you know, so I I think I think the short answer is yes.
Okay, okay, perfect. I think I am I'll stop for now and then I'll hand it to you. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to. Yeah, now the floor is yours and the mic is yours.
I've been meaning to ask you what you found your role was in me learning your culture while we were together.
My
what did
role,
you feel your role was for me? Yeah.
I felt like I was the face of my culture. I felt like I was the point of contact, the first point of contact to my culture, to you, um, and I felt like the way you would perceive me, and it's because the way I carry myself, it is based on the environment, on how I was brought up, and that's
Yeah.
my culture. And so I was really proud to basically share that experience with you of where I come from. And I think I remember we could be able to share the moments of like where I grew up, and where I come from as a family and also a culture. I felt like my role was to basically give you those snapshots of where I come from, but also you being around with me and seeing with my family and see just where other part of the world where we come from. And so I felt like I was like my role was that link or that bridge for you to see coming from your world and also coming to my world. And so I felt like I was that bridge or the link between those two worlds. And so that's how I feel like my role was.
Yeah, I feel like I was definitely exposed to things that I was not used to, just going like to church with your mom and your sister, or like food, like the different types of fish, or like even trying to learn Swahili, like is definitely
Yeah, because
definitely a whole lot.
I think even that also, like I remember we went to a couple of events for the Rwandese community, like Curry, and just me introducing to those kind of event, and so see how in our culture and how we celebrate and how we approach life. Um,
Yeah.
and it was really a moment or an experience that one can never take away from your life or even from me. It is a moment
Yeah.
that was lived and was also experienced, but also being introduced to a new setting of life. It is something that adds value to life and also helps you or shapes your mind on how you approach life.
Yeah. Um, that being said, like the differences that we had culturally, there was a lot of, stretch in our relationship that we had to push and pull, different areas so that we could find a good balance. What do you have any suggestions that you would have for any interracial couples that you would have like taken away from us
I would
being
say,
together?
I would say, it is best not to try to change one another, but it is to understand one another instead. Um, Once you try to change someone, or once you try to win the other person to your culture, that what is familiar to you, it may not work necessarily, but the best way is to understand one another. By that means you understand where the other person comes from. How do they treat life? How do they approach life? And so understanding one's culture, it is the best way to start. And also one way you can able to relate to one another. Um, I come from a culture, also a family that not requires, but it demands out of discipline, especially from the young ones. And so there are things that I remember that challenges were experiencing. Like, we could go and visit my parents' house. Um, in my culture, I've never, we're not taught of being affectionate with your girlfriend in front of your parents, or just giving an innocent kiss, or some, we're not taught saying that. So,
I just want to pause there 1 second. I
yeah,
remember specifically, I was wearing some makeup, and of course it was a lighter shade.
yeah.
And you, I guess, walked into your parents' house, and your mom saw that you had like some on your cheek or something, and she called you
I
out like
remember.
right away. She's like, "What is that?"
I remember. So, but think small things like that. If somebody does not, if you not really understand where I come from, you may think that I'm not being affectionate to you. But the point is,
Yeah.
from my culture, it's not something that we're used to. Being affectionate with your girlfriend, not somebody you're married to, but just a girlfriend, being affectionate with them in front of your parents, it is a setting. It brings in a connotation of being disrespectful in front of your parents. And
Mhm.
yet, from the other side, your side of story, it is normal basically to be in that intimate setting with your boyfriend or girlfriend in front of your parent, and it has nothing to do, and they're okay with that. But where I come from, it is not being approached like that. And so I think understanding one's culture, it is very, very important. Once you understand that, then it can able to help you on how to move forward and how you can able to communicate to one another and understand each other's um, uh, language of uh, love language, on how one can be catered
Yeah.
for or loved for based on that understanding that you have introduced to one another. And that also requires transparency and also effective communication. Um, Communication without comprehension, it is just a waste of time. And so that puts that a person to be in a very guessing mode. And I assume that other person knows what I'm going through, and not necessarily. And so that can bring a lot of confusion and also frustration in a relationship. And so communication and also understanding one another, it is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like in retrospect, it sounds so obvious and simple, but when you're in it, I mean, it's not so obvious. I think since then, individually, we both made some significant personal growth.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know more than I knew then.
But yeah.
Would you say what would you say how has our relationship helped you with your personal growth, like you individually as a person?
Like right now or back then?
Well, from our relationship that we had at the time, like what did you learn from that?
Well, I think being with you, you kind of you brought to my attention, you woke up a side of me that I was not really paying attention, to be very affectionate and also to communicate my feelings. And that's something that I did not, I was not really exposed to be able to effectively communicate my feelings on how I'm feeling inside. I was always on the point or on the view that another person will understand without me being honest. And so I feel like that part also opened me another door to basically understand how one can be, what is their love language? What is it like? How can someone be affection to you, and how could you be loved or catered for in a relationship? And so that really opened up my eyes, and to basically now know myself and study myself when I'm in a relationship. Other than the perspective I had before, it was I assumed that you know and you understand, and yet that was not the case. And so that was the part that really stuck with me, that really opened up my eyes, and I tried to evolve that and imply that in my my relationship, that after we had our experience.
Yeah, I think it's a common problem that many couples have in general. I think typically it's more the men that have a hard time, expressing themselves, but especially in the African culture, you see that often. But I mean, now I think even when we talk, once in a while, I think, I get a sense that I understand you better than I did at the time. So I think we both come a long way since then.
Exactly, because I think it's also like society also kind of plays a role in it, because as men, we are taught, we are raised to be to show the masculinity side of us. Society expects us to show those muscles. It's okay to show those muscles, but again, you are trying also to ignore the person that is in you and how you feel at the end of the day. And it's also okay to be masculine, but also to be vulnerable as a person, as a human being. And so that is one point that society is pushing us to, but I think it is not really logical, and it's not sincere and fair to oneself, if I may present it like that.
Yeah, it's super interesting that you said vulnerable, because I'm like a super big fan of Brene Brown. I don't know if you ever heard of her.
I know.
Like, go see her TED Talk. She's actually the one who really opened my eyes on how women, affect, the men, like their expectations on men, how it could be, a lot of pressure and that kind of thing. And like you're saying, trying to, be tough and disciplined and that kind of thing. So I'm wondering, even like when we were together, I have a strong personality and high expectations that I'm sure that I imposed on you. Do you find that you felt like you were enough when we were together? Like you were valuable?
It is interesting that you say that, because yes, it's true, you have that strong personality, that the way you carry yourself. I felt like I was not complete. because I felt like I had responsibilities to be able to. And I remember this specifically. I told you that I want us to be together, but the thing is that I want to make you happy, and I think the day that I would fail to make you happy, it's the day I have failed completely to do what is expected of me, and that was the point whereby I felt like I was not really complete because back then we were both in school, and so I
Yeah.
wasn't really placed in a better position to to be able to take care of someone and also take care of myself at the same time. And so it was that kind of a position or that level in life whereby you wouldn't have everything, but in my head or within me, I thought I needed more. I needed more, and since I didn't have what I was looking for or what I hoped for, I thought I was not really 100% to you. And
When you
so
say you needed more, you mean like needed what?
I felt like I need to be more. I felt like what is needed is stability, and so which I felt like I didn't have because I was still in school and I was still looking
Like financially, you
for a
mean?
job. Yes, yes, and so I
Okay.
wanted to complete that and have a stable job and everything, and so I felt like I was not complete, and that is how I approached it, and I felt like uh, if 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 uh, if it was maybe at the moment I could have felt otherwise than how I felt back then.
Hmm.
Yes, I don't know if that
That's really
I don't know if that really answered. The,
well. I think that's definitely one portion of it, but I would um, say that I probably made that feeling even worse by, and I guess expecting a certain um, having certain expectations on you that just amplified that feeling. I
yeah,
don't know if
it,
you would
I
agree.
think yeah, I think it did because I felt like you did not understand my world or where I come from, and that's how I understood like
Right.
and so I and again I was assuming that you understand and you are just simply not trying to engage into it or trying to be oblivious to it, and that's how I was thinking or even viewing it. So I felt like you're not really trying to understand the culture and where I come from. It also played a major role, um, and it somehow felt like okay, it is not probably enough what I am doing, since she cannot um, feel it. And I remember there's one thing you told me. You said there's a difference between knowing that you are loved and also feeling loved. And so you say that
Yeah.
you don't feel being loved, and that was the breaking point whereby I felt like okay, and it brought me back and said the day I realized that I don't make you happy is the day I felt completely to become the person or the best version of myself to you. And that really stuck with me, and it it, it basically showed or even matched what I was my doubts, and that I was not really 100% complete, and there's something that more that I need to achieve, and there's more to do from my side.
Hmm. Well, I think since then, I think I have a broader understanding of, you know, where you were at the time and where I was at the time. I think we were both young and had little experience and
Right.
a little naive, what relationships are and what love is. And I think, you know, you live and learn and, you go from there. Um, our like young 18,
Yeah,
20
it
some year
was.
old selves.
Yeah, it was an experience
Yeah.
that we're both young and we did not know better. Um, Back then, I thought I knew what I was doing, and now looking back, and
Yeah.
I'm like I have what was I doing? What exactly was I doing? I was very confident
Yeah,
in my own bubble, being confident and knowing that like I know what I'm doing, like I know what's going on here. And technically,
yeah,
when I look back, I just laugh at myself. I laugh at my life.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it makes me cringe just to think about it. What would you say that you know the our first long term relationship has changed your perspective on love in general?
I would say 100% yes. It did, because there's a difference when you love someone and also being loved, and the experiences are very different because when you are receiving love and we're giving love, it's not the same. Um, and so I felt like I was receiving love from you, um, and from that perspective, instead of I was giving love, but also receiving it back. So it was not only one way; it was both ways, and it really shaped my
Like
thinking.
you thought of it as the one way before?
Yes, 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 yes. And I thought like you are stepping in and stepping up, to show up in a relationship. And so, um, from my point of view, I felt like it was a very eye-opening, and so to receive that instead of being the person always giving, and so it helped me moving forward. It helped me on how to be able to approach someone and take care of someone, and how to be with somebody in a relationship. And so from that experience, it taught me those those two different perspective of giving love and also receiving love.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was an experience that I would have maybe later on, but I think it was necessary that I went through it, and I gained that experience. I witnessed it. I went through it personally, and so it was more vivid, and it was more comprehensive for myself because I've experienced that, and so it kind of shaped me on the way how I approach next relationship. And
No kidding.
but yeah, that was my understanding of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So do you have more, or that was the last one?
Anything else that comes to mind? I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like we can reminisce for forever, but
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
anything.
well, I just want to have your opinion on how people, anybody who out there, I just want to have your opinion on what
Yeah.
what could you really advise people out there? What could be something that you can say to people who had shared experience, they have shared life together at some point, um, and what how could you be able to advise somebody out there, both um, interracial couples or anybody who have been in a relationship and they are no longer together, or people who are actually experiencing these things at the moment.
Just relationships in general, I guess.
Right, right.
Um, I would say a really good friend of mine had pointed out the importance of, people's values. And with time, I definitely learned that it's not only which values are important to you, but the order of them. So, even if you say that, family stability, education is important for you. If for me, work, family, and stability, if I put work before, and then you're putting family first, there's a disconnect there.
Right.
So even though family is both important for both each individual, if it's not ranked the same, and I'll do extra hours at work because that's more important to me than making the family dinner on a Sunday night, that over time it builds up, and it's either a question of agreeing that you don't have the same values or you don't have the same order, or accepting that they're not in the same order. So like if you're telling me that you want to do extra hours at work, that I know being in a relationship with you, that's part of the package deal. There's always some balance and negotiating, push and pull along the way. But I mean, you can't really change a person. You can help them change perspectives, but I've learned that the hard way. I definitely tried to break the bottle, like open your emotions from you, and it just was not happening. It just not something that you can do is to change someone. So know what their values are, and that they actually walk the walk. They don't just talk the walk, or that expression.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's
does that make sense? I feel like
it does. But so let's say for people who have in a point in their life where they cannot be together, and they are in that last step of breaking up, how do you advise them to
like deciding to break up or not?
Yes, and even if they do, how would you advise them to not really depart ways in a very negative way, but still have decency and respect for one another?
Yeah. I definitely think that owning your inner work is number one.
Right.
Like, regardless of the situation, even if I am downright pissed at you for doing whatever, or you're always doing this, or like, my responsibility is to look inwards and being like, okay, why is this particular thing, just getting to me so much? What is going on in my mind? What are my expectations? What am I doing that might be contributing? Because I find it's so easy to play the blame game in relationships.
Right.
And if both people put their inner work and then are open and vulnerable with each other, that's what keeps a relationship open. Even if things don't work out in the long end, I think if you're mature about it, like, I appreciate you as a human being and for the experiences that we did have together, and to just completely cut you out of my life, I feel like it doesn't honor the life experience that I gained from the relationship that we did have. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, there's certainly some relationships that aren't that pleasant, that aren't healthy. I mean, it's not everyone that would be able to still communicate like we do, but if the relationship meant anything to the people, I think it's with boundaries. I definitely want to mention that. I think especially when you live in the same area, the lines could be blurred. When you're trying to move on, if you see each other even after you're broken up, it's hard to kind of cut ties in a certain way. So know your boundaries and be mature and work for us.
Well, thank you for dropping that advice, and that wisdom. So thank you very much for making the time on a Sunday evening. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate you making the time, and thank you for um, the interesting questions that you presented. They had to make me think twice, and also have a flashback, and make sure that I have a correct collection of my memory. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful.
Myself in a hole enough already. So.
Well, okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Salut les amis, hello friends, this is Hakiza Frank. I'm going to be frank with you. Subscribe below for more videos. Thank you for the courtesy of your time. Merci beaucoup et à la prochaine.